What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Pick Six podcast and our All 32 series. Will Brinson and Katie Mox here. This is the series where we catch you up with insiders to give you the need-to-know information on every NFL team. And today we're diving into the Green Bay Packers with CheeseheadTV co-founder and Packers insider Aaron Nagler. Nagler, there's nobody else that we would want to talk to if we're talking Packers here. So thank you for joining us.
Of course. Thanks a lot for having me on. I love Brinson's laughing already. Brinson, I'm coming for you, buddy.
Hey,
coming
look,
for you.
Katie brings a modicum of professionality.
I know. I mean, what is she doing with you, buddy? I don't know what's happening here.
I don't even know what the technical word is. I got called out the other day for making up homerific as a word. I think professionality.
I think homerific, eventually it's one of those words that will get utilized so often that it will become a word. It's probably not officially a word at the moment, but eventually it'll make its way into Webster.
I mean, just to be clear, the dictionary, like Webster's, first of all, Webster's added Merriam to their name, right? They change their words all the time.
See,
they constantly add new words to the dictionary
That's
itself.
what I'm saying.
I was going to ask you about Jordan Love, but I remember that I had something else I was going to ask you before we do that.
Oh,
what is the best Bond movie of all time? One, and two, where does Daniel Craig rank on your Bond rankings? Because I've moved him up significantly ahead of Pierce Brosnan in the last year, which shocks me. Yes.
Oh yeah, I think that there's no doubt.
The Brosnan movies kind of suck.
Well, here's the thing. The weird part about you watch the Bronson movies, and it's like the last one, he like took on an army. Like he's taken on all of the Korean army or whatever it is. And it's like, that's not James Bond. James Bond is
less realistic than
the
interview with like Seth Rogen and James Franco.
Right. Right, exactly. But no, I mean, it's interesting because I think Daniel Craig's movies are the best.
Yes.
For me, Sean Connery is always going to be the best Bond.
Of course.
There's no doubt. But yeah, Craig's right there at 2. No question about it. And probably, if I'm being honest, my favorite Bond of all time is probably Skyfall. And that's no shade to all the old ones. There's no shade to even some of the Timothy Dalton ones. I love Living Daylights, but Skyfall is probably my favorite.
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering how high you had Craig because
I love him.
I think
he's
Moore
brilliant.
is probably still. I really like falling asleep to old Bond movies. I don't know if
they're made to fall asleep to at this point. Those old ones, no doubt about it.
No,
you get Russia from Russia with Love is a hard watch,
list?
man. Some of those are a tough watch. I don't know.
I mean, some of those old school ones you can throw on, and I'm out before the song ends. Like it's
Right,
it's like it's a I don't know if it's like a mental thing at this point, right?
No doubt.
Well,
No doubt.
Nagler's not going to like this, but that's how I feel about the old Star Wars movies.
We were having so much fun. We were having a good
Pull
time.
up your.
And you had to go there. You know.
Let's ask you about Jordan Love then instead,
Yeah.
because you finally got rid of the guy you hate. You love to
Okay,
hate. You hate to
already,
love Aaron
already we're starting with this. I got enough of this nonsense from Packers fans on the internet. I don't need to take it from you, Brinson.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think that you served as I don't want to say mouthpiece but like a good megaphone for Packers fans in the sense of not everybody was. There were plenty of people who were like, "Look, Aaron, it's just not you, Aaron, the other Aaron, Rodgers. Yeah. It's just time to go, buddy.
Yeah,
you're not happy. They're not happy. We're not happy. No one's happy. There's no Super Bowl. We know the Super Bowl's not showing up. It's going to end at best in the NFC title game in Green Bay.
Oh.
Let's just move on and see what's out there for both of us, right?
Yeah, I think there was zero doubt at this point, especially when the reporting now has come out from behind the scenes of how the offseason transpired. It was time. And to your point, yeah, it was. I had said many times on my chats, my daily chats at CheeseheadTV, that it just was at a point where it was, beyond butting your head against the wall. It was just this feeling of continuously hanging on year after year, trying desperately to recapture something that was never going to happen again. It just became apparent, especially after that 2020 title game. Everything they were going to do with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, they had done. And everything else was just trying to keep making it happen. They kept kicking the salary cap can. They kept trying to keep the band together to diminishing results. It was definitely time. And I think both sides are going to come out of this in a good spot.
Well, how does Jordan Love look? What does this offense look like with no Aaron Rodgers?
Right. Well,
tell the people.
Yeah. That's going to be fascinating to watch kind of play out, right? I mean, especially since they've hit reset on the offensive side of the ball. I think the one area you can look at where there's some continuity is along the offensive line, which I think is a good thing. But man, you've got Aaron Jones, who should be a superstar. I don't think he's perceived that way a lot of the places around the league and around the nation, but he should be a superstar. And hopefully, and I don't completely put this on Rodgers, but without Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, I think it should allow Aaron Jones to step forward and become more of a focal point. Now, with that said, it's still the NFL. You still win and lose by the play of your quarterback and your passing game, and I think that's going to be an up and down affair throughout this season. And I think Jordan Love, we've seen him improve every single year, right? We've seen him from a very, very rough rookie season where he didn't even have an off season, barely had a training camp during the kind of COVID 2-week period before the season started, through what we saw in Philadelphia last year when Aaron went out with injury. Jordan comes in. I think he really surprised some people with how well he ran the offense. And yeah, in that game, Philadelphia is protecting a lead. They're kind of trying to keep everything in front of him, although they failed stopping Christian Watson in that regard. But, they're trying to protect a lead. So you're playing a different style of defense. And I think there's going to be tough moments for Jordan Love in the offense this year. There's no doubt about that. But I think given what you've seen from him progression-wise from his rookie season to what you saw last year, you should see a guy who is pretty comfortable under center and knows the offense like the back of his hand at this point. He knows the system. It's just a question of getting on the same page with a lot of young skill position players. And I think that's where, first-time starter, lots of young guys he's throwing the ball to. Yeah, they're going to have the summer together, and they're going to be – everyone's going to be very excited to watch them take the field. But I keep telling Packers fans, it is going to be an up-and-down affair, and there are certainly going to be frustrating times in Green Bay this year.
You mentioned the young skill position guys. Convince me that Brian Gutekunst, the Packers GM, did not open up a Latte Larry's Spite store on day 2 of the draft when he selected Jalen Reed, Luke Musgrave, and Tucker Kraft with, I think, 3 of his 4 second and third round picks. I mean, felt like, all right, fine, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do the round 1 thing. We're not going to do it. We're not going to let you guys think we're coming after Rodgers, but we're going to drop 3 bombs on Saturday or Friday. Excuse me.
We see now, did he open that store, or did Aaron Rodgers by taking everybody to New York with him? And here's the other thing. Like, you talk about the first-round wide receiver thing, and that has certainly been a trend that has gotten a lot of attention. But people forget Brian Gutekunst tried to get into the first round last year to select Christian Watson with the last pick of the first round. Minnesota didn't want to play ball, didn't want to give him the fifth-year option on what they probably thought was going to be a pretty good player. They got Watson anyway, but that happened when Rodgers was still under center. He got him Dobbs as well, I think is pretty talented. But it's pretty clear that Brian was preparing for life after Aaron Rodgers with those picks. I don't think it was spite. I do think it was a major reset on the offensive side of the ball. Brian mentioned it in his post-draft press conference. Very much the idea behind this offseason is collecting a group of talent and hoping, the plan would be that they all grow together and they mature together, they develop together, so they become a pretty potent unit 2 or 3 years in.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say too, like with the Rodgers stuff, people sleep on it. You have all these like, no first round wide receivers. Well, one, you have a lot of good ones. Like
that's the other thing. Like
who cares if they're from the first round if they're good? And then two, like you look back at that offensive line, the original one, like with Sitton and Lang and obviously back to I think all 3 of those guys came from the same draft, which is kind of crazy. Yeah, like that's a big difference in terms of how your quarterback performs.
Well, especially when you have shown again and again and again, regardless of who the GM is. I don't know what the process is that they're using in Green Bay, but if there's a team that knows how to find offensive linemen, it's the Green Bay Packers. And we've seen that around the league. Certain franchises seem to have a nose for certain positions, right?
Yeah.
And in Green Bay, it's definitely offensive line. I mean, Bakhtiari was a 4th-round pick. They found Sitton and Lang on day 3. I mean, they've done a really good job of finding really good players late in the draft.
So you talk about this offensive line being good. We've talked about getting some weapons for Jordan Love. Looking at some of his futures, passing yards over under 3,200 and a half, regular season passing touchdowns 21 and a half. What's the lean here?
I'm leaning under on both of those. Only because I think this is the year they finally do what I thought they were going to do last year. Little did I know that Aaron Rodgers was going to be a bit obstinate and say, no, it doesn't matter that we don't have seasoned pass catchers. We're still going to spread the ball around all year and try and throw it around the yard, even though I have a broken thumb, but that's neither here nor there. I think this year is finally
AJ Dillon
turn.
finally sees 200
Well,
carries.
maybe not 200, but a few more, right? And maybe they get Aaron Jones a few more carries than 3 or 4 in the first half, which is something that happened quite a bit last season. So I don't think it's a question of, they're not going to throw it, because of course they're going to throw it. It's the NFL. But I do think they're going to try to lean on their running game a little bit more because, hey, that's where the experience is. That's where the talent and the veteran experience is behind the quarterback. It's not out on the perimeter. I would suspect, again, good offensive line. You got Aaron Jones. Try to run the ball a little bit more. So I think that's going to depress those numbers a little bit. That, you throw in the fact that he's a first-year starter. Yeah, I would take the under on both of those.
Yeah, Packers at 58%, 58 to 41, I guess, or whatever if you run
Do
your
the
pass,
math.
your pass run ratio. I mean, how high do you think they can get in terms of running the ball? Like, because it's interesting, Aaron. You think about, you have Mike Vrabel, right? Matt LaFleur. I mean, Matt LaFleur spent plenty of time there.
Sure.
Arthur Smith in Atlanta.
Yep.
Like, is it a possibility where LaFleur says, all right, now that Rodgers isn't here, and he loved the time with Rodgers. I think, I think he really enjoyed coming in and winning 13 games his first 3 years.
Right.
Probably doesn't hurt to have Rodgers, but like, now does he say, okay, it's time to really feed these two guys? You see the on the screen, you can see the over under for Aaron Jones rushing yards, 875.5. I mean, you think this is feed these guys the rock?
I hope so. Again, I've been burned before on this because I thought it was so obvious that was the route they were going to take last year. But again, that didn't quite happen. I do think there's a good chance that's the route they take. And it just makes sense to me. I mean, Aaron Jones, like I said, he should be a superstar. People should be talking about him with all the best backs. And somehow that rarely happens until some social media group puts out some, graphic with, here's Aaron Jones and his percentage of broken tackles or his percentage of yards per carry or whatever, any kind of metric you want to use. And he's always in the top of the league. And it's just baffling to me that the Packers don't seemingly want to kind of utilize that early in games to try and get leads, etc. So, yeah, I would suspect, again, I don't know how much it's going to be about, pounding the rock like 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of thing. But I do think, given the way they're undoubtedly going to try and format this offense, as far as we saw a little bit of this in 2020, where there's a lot of motion, a lot of condensed formations, very kind of Shanahan-esque, if you will, where you are able to utilize that boot action, make plays look the same, so you can get either your running back in space and break him on one of these zone runs, or you get Jordan Love booting out of the play that looks the exact same. You get a nice delineated kind of throwing lane where you read high to low or hit your check down. I think you're going to see quite a bit of that to try and help your first-year starter. But because of that, I think, Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, they should see the ball a little bit more.
All right. I love to hear that. We're going to take a quick break here. More Packers futures when we come back. And I'd also like to know where the best cheese curds are in Wisconsin. You're watching Pick Six. We'll be right back. All right. Brinson and I are back here with Aaron Nagler. And I posed the question before the break, who has the best cheese curds? Is it Culver's?
Well, Culver's are a go-to. There's no doubt about it. For myself, I think my favorites are probably at Kroll's across the street from Lambeau. But you can't go. I have yet to have bad cheese curds in Wisconsin. This is the truth.
Same.
Even the ones that you get when you're leaving and you're in the airport and you see those bags of cheese curds and you're like, those can't possibly be good. And then you buy them and you bring them home and it's like a little taste of home and they're brilliant. So if you see cheese curds in Wisconsin, chances are you're going to get a good batch.
I mean, cheese is just generally good.
Yeah, in general, cheese is good.
Well, when they're fried as well. I mean, it does something to you.
Yeah, you can't go wrong. Cannot go wrong.
The Packers need to be ranked blank in the NFL in defense in order to win the NFC North.
Plus 500.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It's such an up and down affair on the defensive side of the ball. I would say, they got to be in the top 10, right?
Yeah,
have to
I
be.
think so, yeah.
If they're going to win the division, and I think that's a tall task for this group. I don't think Packers fans are under any illusion that this is going to be a tough year as far as winning the division, something we've been pretty accustomed to in Green Bay for the last couple decades. I do think the defense has the opportunity and the talent to be ranked in the top 10, if not even higher. But man, again, fool me once. Last year, we came off that playoff loss against the San Francisco 49ers, as Katie remembers also well.
My
And
favorite memory.
but the Packers looked like they were ready to go on defense. You thought, okay, this is the way they're going to operate. Suffocating D. You got Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander was back. It was like, okay, that's the standard, right? And then you come out week 1, and Minnesota just walks up and down the field on them, and they don't really fix any of that until halfway through the year, if not later. So. Yeah, Joe Barry is not a popular man in Green Bay, and I do think this is you talk about guys on the hot seat. I think all eyes are on him because, yeah, especially with the first-year starter, it's not like you have a superstar quarterback that can save your bacon anymore. You got to deliver on defense, and I know Preston Smith just talked about this recently. The defense has to help. You got to play complementary football. You do have a first-time starter on offense. Give him some advantageous field position. Help him out, and I think that is going to be a bit of a tall task for this defense that has been inconsistent at most times under Joe Barry.
Nagler, I want to point something out. Earlier this morning, the Packers were plus 500 to win the division, but right now on Caesars, plus 420. So we're getting a little bit better here. Are the Packers being disrespected a little bit here in the odds? Kings of the North for so long. If you would have told me 4 years ago that the Detroit Lions would be the favorite to take the NFC North, I would have told you were crazy.
You'd be locked up in an insane asylum.
Right.
Like you wouldn't be like, yeah, that's wild. They'd be like, no, I'm sorry, Katie's not here. She's at Shady Acres mental home. Like, right. I mean, like, yeah, just in a straitjacket.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's I can't quibble with it. Like the way the Lions played last year, especially on offense. I mean, they were dropping 30 on everybody except for the Packers. Funnily enough, like Joe Barry, for all his faults, he did lock down the Lions for much of last season. But yeah,
the Vikings number is weirder than the Packers number.
Yes, totally agree. Totally agree. But the thing with the Lions is they played hard and they played well and they played complementary football pretty much all year. Even though they didn't have a great defense, they had a defense that at least helped their offense at times. And I think that's a team that you talk about, a team that takes on the personality of their coach, really plays well together and plays hard down in and down out. That was the Lions. So I can't dismiss it. I saw it last year, and I think the excitement around that team is warranted. And as far as the Packers go, I don't think it's, a case of being disrespected. I think it's a lot of unknowns, right?
Yeah.
And I think the number one thing that most people outside the building and NFL observers in general are wondering about, obviously Jordan Love is the story, but it's Matt Lafleur. And you talked about, Matt came in and they won 13 games the first 3 years in town. And like, oh, yeah, Matt, he's great. And then last year happens. They have a 5-game losing streak. Now, that hasn't happened in Green Bay in a very long time. And I think a lot of people want to find out what Matt is made of without Aaron Rodgers under center. I'm bullish on it. I think Matt's a really good coach. I think one of the things that gets maybe dismissed or forgotten about last season, they did have that 5-game losing streak, and that's a team that did not quit. Not the locker room, not the coaching staff, everybody. Matt kept it together to the point where they made a mini run at the end and were on the doorstep of the playoffs. Could have gone either way. We've seen it plenty of times in the NFL where a team, it's pretty much out of it, and the guys in the locker room start making plans for the offseason. That didn't happen in Green Bay, and I think that's a testament to Matt. So I do think a big part of it is just the unknown. We haven't been here in a long time with the Packers, and between the inexperience on offense, the inconsistent defense, a coach who has to prove himself, I'm not surprised that the Packers are being summarily dismissed by Vegas.
Who's the more annoying fan base right now? The Lions or the Bears? And
it's not even close. Brinson, you know this. It's not even close. It's the Bears. It's the Bears. I mean, they had the number 1 pick, and they're talking galactic amounts of junk this offseason. Now, it's the Bears. It's their fans. They do this every year. I don't know why I'm surprised, but it's the Bears. It's so the Bears. Like the Lions, God bless them. The Lions fans are happy for the first time in forever.
Y'all are like Carolina basketball fans with talking like NC State fans. You're like, oh, the Lions fans are so cute.
It is.
They are just
I'm happy for
cute.
them. I'm rooting for them. Like I'm on their side. Restore the roar. I'm down with it. I'm all for it. I'm happy for them. The Bears, really, the Justin Fields stuff is just out of control. And like I saw last yesterday afternoon, some Bears fan put $5,000 on the Bears winning the Super Bowl. That's where we're at in the offseason, people. That's where we're at.
All right, so if I told you that one of Justin Fields and Jordan Love ended up either winning a Super Bowl or becoming a Hall of Famer. You pick whatever. They're like just only. I mean, like unlikely, right? I'm just saying only one of them is going to happen. What would your percentiles be on Fields versus Love, and like taking the humoristic nature,
the homerific,
yeah.
Look, I'm bullish on Fields as a player. I think he's a lot better than Packers fans want to admit. You know, I do think, man, he's got to prove it from the pocket, right? And that's the big question for every young NFL quarterback. And he is exciting with his legs. There's no doubt about it. We've seen plenty of guys who are exciting with their legs who, when push came to shove, couldn't make that big play on third down from the pocket, and that was pretty much it. I think he's got the ability to do it. I just don't know if he's ever going to put it together. As far as Jordan Love goes, man, there's just way too much unknown. I think he's got the talent, but I don't know how he's going to handle being a first-time starter. I don't know how he's going to operate within Matt's offense. I don't know how much he's going to use his legs, right, to get out of trouble and make plays outside the pocket. I'm going to go 50-50. How's that? How's that for a punt?
You were kicking a field goal on 4th and
1 from the opponent's 1. Yeah. Well, you know.
Nags, before we let you get out of here, though, Packers win total 7.5 to make the playoffs,
Vegas
plus
so
170.
Yeah.
How do we feel about these?
You know, I'm taking the over on the wins.
Okay.
And I don't think they make the playoffs though. I think it's going to be neck and neck down the stretch there. I think a big part of this season comes down to how they're playing in December versus how they started playing in September. I think that's the story of the year, right? Both as a team and Jordan Love himself as a quarterback. All I care about this year is, are they developing? Are they growing? Are they better at the end of the season than they were at the beginning of the year? Because, look, the Packers don't operate like most teams. I know every year, every offseason, it's like you get grades for teams' off seasons and things like that. And I always say the Packers should probably be kind of exempt from those because they don't think in a year-to-year way. Like, they think in long-term windows. And this year totally encapsulates that idea as far as resetting the roster, trying to get out from under all the cap stuff they did to try and keep Aaron Rodgers and company intact. So they are trying to open a window where they become contenders again for a long stretch of time. Now, who knows if that happens, but that's the plan.
Yeah.
And I'm excited for it, but that means this year is kind of the building block, right? It's the laying of the groundwork. And all I want from this season as a Packers fan is to know they're going in the right direction. And if they just show me that, I'm happy regardless of whether they make the playoffs or not.
And just to, sorry, I'm like, Katie, you can take us out. She's like, wrap the show. I'm just like, oh, one more. When Rodgers took over, they went 6-10, right?
Yep.
Did you have that feeling after that 6-10 season?
100%.
Like, we're headed in the right direction. Okay.
Because Rodgers stepped in. It was funny. I got asked that a couple weeks ago. When did I know that Aaron was our long-term? Like, when as a fan did I feel it, right? And I said pretty much after week 1, because they had that opening game against Minnesota, and it just wasn't too big for him. And yeah, no, he wasn't perfect, but he was clearly a starting quarterback in the NFL, and I was like, okay, we got the guy, right? And the Packers seem to agree because like 6 games later, they signed him to a long-term deal, which I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened this season. If Jordan signed this 1-year extension because of kind of the odd way the 5th-year option falls. But if he balls out, say, and looks like the guy 4, 5, 6 games into this, I would suspect the Packers lock him up because, I mean, you guys know, you watch the NFL. If you don't have a quarterback, you're dead. But if you got a guy, get him signed sooner rather than later because these prices, they're only going up.
And the Packers love to do things in the same, they do early, and they love to do it in like this. Like every time Aaron Rodgers would sign a contract extension, they do it like the day training camp starts. They they release.
They adore that. They love getting somebody signed right before camp so they can announce it the first day of camp, and then camp is all abuzz with the good news. Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Corey Linsley, they've done that year after year after year. No doubt.
Well, I am rooting for Jordan Love here. That is going to do it for our Packers preview. Thanks to Aaron Nagler. Stay tuned for more All 32 with daily drops in your podcast feed and on YouTube. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe on this YouTube page, and you can catch Nagler on CheeseheadTV. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks a lot, guys.